Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and having a wonderful start to your day and new weekend out there so far. We got a few things to talk about in this morning's video. We'll start off by speaking on today's weather into tonight. We'll go a little bit into tomorrow's weather for certain areas throughout the country also. After we get done doing that, I don't think that'll take long at all. We will speak on some medium to long range model guidance. What's coming up? Is severe weather going to return anytime soon? We're going to speak on the pattern. There has been some dramatic changes in model guidance over the last 24 hours that could support maybe a quicker return to severe weather across especially middle portions of the country. So we're going to speak on that. We'll break it down. We'll slow it down in that portion of the video and just try to figure out what's to come. But over the next few days, it's going to be relatively quiet. There is a little bit of a severe weather risk that's a little bit more elevated, I would say, across areas of the Ohio Valley for Monday, and we will spend a little bit of time on that. But if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. I do not have a Bible devotion for this morning's video, but I am going to get to the point where I'm doing it every single day. I think we did 2 or 3 days in a row over the last few days, so we're getting there, guys. But anyways, let's get rocking and rolling. So this is what's going on right now. Now, definitely an interesting event going on across areas of New England. We got heavy wet snow flying around in certain areas. In fact, I was looking at real-time observations, and areas around Boston were reporting snow. So let me know what you're seeing out there across southern New England, anywhere in New England. How much snow do you got on the ground? You know, over the last 24 hours, short-range model guidance was going crazy with some of these snowfall totals. But, you know, I was thinking I was going to wake up this morning to a lot of videos out of that area via social media, and I'm not seeing a whole lot. So I don't know what that means, but let me know what you're seeing up there in the Northeast right now. And that's by far our most active weather that we have ongoing right now this morning. We have a little energy pivoting on top of a ridge up here in the northern Rockies, the northern high plains, into sections of the upper Midwest. But the southern portion of the country is pretty quiet. So this is what's going on right now. Latest watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have some, what is that, high wind? Yeah, that's high wind watches across areas of South Dakota, with some strong winds returning this weekend. We got red flag warnings in that pink color where we have some fire danger out there, which a lot of times we do really any time of the year across this area of the country. Some freeze warnings continue in this purple shaded area right here in these counties. It's cold even across the southeast. It's kind of that annoying cold. To me, when you get in mid-April and it's still cold, especially in the south, that kind of cold is annoying. You guys know I'm a huge winter weather fan. But to me, when it's still cold in late March, April, man, it's just, all right, it's time to move on, right? But anyways, we're getting that across areas of the eastern U.S. Winter weather advisories have been a little bit more broad than they were, 24 hours ago across southern New England. But this is kind of the main round pushing in right now, precipitation. We'll have another round that moves in later this weekend. But this is latest watches, mornings, advisories. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, we do have a marginal risk across areas of the high plains, and kind of southeastern Montana, all the northern sections of Wyoming, extending a little bit into western South Dakota. This is driven off the risk of really just damaging winds, just a 5% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in this brown area. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. So it's not a huge deal. Could upgrade a category, but we don't expect it to. And then there's no risk of flash flooding at all. At least it's below 5%. So let's break it down section by section. The southeast, a nice day. It's going to be cooler as we have kind of the wraparound flow from this upper low to the north and northeast. So this will kind of pivot in some cooler temperatures or reinforce the cooler temperatures. It's already been relatively cool for most of the week across the southeast. So it'll be a cooler day. Now, because this low's up here, we could be close enough to it, say, in southeast Virginia, eastern North Carolina for some wraparound showers, maybe even a storm. Had some wacky weather across the Carolinas yesterday with a lot of storms that were producing a lot of hail. In fact, I'm kind of surprised they didn't kind of extend the marginal risk of severe weather a little bit further west throughout the Carolinas throughout the day. because I do think the central and western Carolinas kind of had more severe weather than the eastern Carolinas yesterday, which the eastern Carolinas is where we had the marginal risk. But anyways, we could see that. I don't think it'll be as crazy as yesterday. But we get into tomorrow morning and waking up to another calm and cool morning. Up here in the Northeast, interesting event ongoing right at this moment. We got heavy wet snow in certain areas, cold rain in others, a mixture of both in some areas. It's just a tricky situation, and it's hard to really pinpoint this because it's really dynamic driven and elevation driven. And, a half a degree makes a huge difference in temperatures, but some heavy wet snow flying around certain areas. By the time you get into this afternoon, this main batch of precipitation sort of breaks apart. Some moisture gets slung back here into the rest of New York State, deeper back into central PA. Adirondacks, Poconos could still get some wet snow, but the main batch gets thrown up into Maine, and some wet snow could fly around in certain areas. But we get a break this evening, maybe starts to dry out, and then another low tries to crank up, and this will deliver a soggy late Saturday night across southern New England down to Long Island, New York City. And once again, excuse me, wow. I don't think that's happened ever. Sorry about that, guys. I actually had to pause the video. I went to go swallow, and I swallowed my own spit. So maybe that's TMI, too much information. But, I think it happens to all of us every once in a while. But anyways, we keep going here. Sorry about the interruption. This is kind of another round that'll move in tonight. This will be some heavy rain, and in some areas there might be just enough cold air around still to another batch of heavy snow. In fact, we take it up into Sunday morning, and we got it's even trying to show some snow flying around in tomorrow morning in Long Island. I'm not sure if that'll happen. This is kind of just a whole bunch of not sures, if you will, just because this is a very tough forecast. It's all depends on your elevation. Are you near that pocket of cold air aloft? But an interesting storm for sure that's just kind of trapped in this ridge. So let me know what you end up seeing up here over the next 24 to 36 hours. Robin, I know you sent me something. I haven't had a chance to actually look at my messages from yesterday. So I'll definitely look at that and tell me, anybody up here, I'll tell me what you end up getting. But this is snowfall between now and 2 a.m. Monday. So still another few to several inches of wet snow in maybe the Catskills and a few inches of snow in the Berkshires. So let me know what you end up getting if you live in this, kind of colored region right here. This is just a few inches of wet snow. And then we'll go up the road a little bit up into Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Could get several inches of snow up in these, higher elevated favored regions. If you live in like these purple shaded colors, this is over 6 inches of snow that is forecast over the next 36, 48 hours. Not as much up into Maine just because you don't have as much precipitation to go with. So down here in the southern plains, not a whole lot going on today. Another quiet and beautiful day. So enjoy it. It's warming up. We're expecting some 90s all the way up to the central high plains. So up here in the north central U.S. is a quiet day too. Now we could get some showers up in northern Minnesota. They could drift towards Lake Superior, and then maybe some more showers and heavy rain in western areas of the Dakotas. We'll speak on that here in a second. Could get some showers overnight in the UP of Michigan. Could dampen the grass or the ground. And by the time I'm waking up tomorrow morning, could be waking up to just some scattered showers out there, but not a big weather day at all up here whatsoever. Western U.S. Piece of energy is going to pivot through a little a kind of short wave, a low pressure is going to swing through the northern Rockies. This will generate some showers and storms across Montana, Wyoming, maybe western areas of the Dakotas throughout the afternoon and evening. In fact, this is really the only impactful weather in the western U.S. for today over the next 24 hours into tonight. And here it is, this is around 6 o'clock or so local time. Some showers and storms moving through areas of Montana. These could, reach strong to severe limits. It's a very possibility of this. But I don't think it'll be that huge of a deal for you guys, the standards up here. But could get some snow that kind of pivots behind this with some cold air following. But just watch out for these storms up here in this region today. We'll just went through that pretty fast. So this is around lunchtime. This is getting to early mid-afternoon. This is getting into this evening, overnight hours. So just watch out for some storms up here. And we could get some strong winds too over the next 24 hours in certain areas. So gusty winds, especially, around the western sections of South Dakota, could get 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gust. It could get even stronger as we get into Sunday afternoon. But temperatures, like I said, just one of those pesky cold April days across the eastern U.S. I mean, it's even chilly all the way down to the Carolinas and Georgia and the deep south, even Florida. I mean, northern Florida, the panhandle could only get into the 60s a day. Of course, the northeast is going to remain cold with cloud cover, rain, and snow. Some areas will be locked in the 30s, so chilly conditions. But the further west you get, the warmer it gets. I mean, it's going to be warm across the middle of the country, downright hot across the high plains. I mean, 80s, 90s. So if you like the hot weather, you're going to get it. It'll be very warm, very dry. It's getting hot across the southwest too. A little bit cooler across the northwest just because you have lower pressure overhead. But yeah, so slight risk of severe weather for Monday. Level 2 out of 5 includes Columbus, Pittsburgh, Charleston, West Virginia. Includes Cincinnati, Dayton, and everybody in between those areas. All the way down to Lexington, Kentucky, Huntington, West Virginia. And then a marginal risk extends in that dark green color from D.C., Baltimore, all the way down to Beckley, all the way down to Evansville, almost all the way up to Indianapolis, and makes it all the way to just south of Cleveland. So what's driving this? Well, we're not quite sure yet, but it's probably going to be damaging winds. What we know right now is if you live in that yellow area, there is a 15% risk of any severe weather. It's probably not going to be a 15% risk of tornadoes. But what I'm betting it's probably going to end up being is a 15% risk of damaging winds and hail. So that's my guess at it right now, but could be a little bit different. Could be like a little 2% risk of a tornado. So we'll see. Got my cold brew coffee this morning. My wife went up to Starbucks to get it for me. But anyways, Sunday afternoon. So we're going to discuss the pattern. Just remember, this is at 500 millibars. So the orange you see on your screen is higher pressure. The blue you see on your screen, that's lower pressure. Lower pressure typically associated with more stormy conditions, higher pressure, more stable conditions. Now, this doesn't always reflect what's going on at the surface. So we are getting into tomorrow afternoon, and we have this system swinging through this lower pressure. This is going to bring just enough kinematic flow, wind energy, through this area right here to have enough forcing mechanism to get some storms going across areas of the middle of the country. And there's our low pressure right here. Our pesky upper trough is going to finally pivot away and get on out of here and stop delivering all this crazy weather with these hailstorms and mid-April snow across the Northeast that we've been experiencing over the last few days. Now, this area of lower pressure is going to really amplify. You notice this blue area begins to get larger, and it'll get stronger and really begin to influence our weather more. So at this point, we got this flow that's kind of going through like this. All right, up here in this area, even though you got lower pressure, we're probably going to get some maybe cool rain or snow showers, something like that. But in general, the atmosphere is too stable for any severe weather. Down here, there's not enough really anything to get anything going because you're trapped in that ridging, more calm pattern. You always look in the middle ground of things, right? Where kind of that blue and the orange kind of meet right in here. This is where you kind of have the, this is where things kind of come together to create weather, basically. So going forward here, and what I mean by it kind of comes together to create weather is you got the flow created at the bottom base of this trough swinging through right here. You got the warmer air, better thermodynamics kind of meeting that flow. So this is why you most likely will get, enough ingredients to get storms going Monday afternoon, say 21Z, that's Monday afternoon, across this area right into here, most likely. Now, you got the highest risk kind of inside this circle that I just drew, but this will be enough to get some strong to severe storms going across this area where basically the ingredients kind of meet the best, if you will. So not a big event, and this is diving down more so out of the northwest, so this typically isn't going to bring any kind of crazy severe weather event. but this thing will really dive down, amplify even more. And you see a whole lot of blue on your screen at this point. It's getting a Tuesday afternoon. Now we're probably going to have weather associated with the actual lower pressure. Some cold, rain, maybe snow showers flying around. We could have some storms maybe overnight, Monday night into Tuesday across areas of the eastern U.S. We'll see what happens. But behind this is you'll have that return flow. So of course this is going to bring cooler temperatures that follows behind, because the flow around this trough that does just like this. So we're going to have another shot of cooler air that dives down across the entire eastern U.S., but it looks fleeting. It doesn't look like it's going to last very long. This trough kind of moves in, moves out, and then a ridge begins to take over. So once that ridge begins to take over, we could dramatically warm back up over the central and eastern U.S. And this is what's changed, because if you look at the Euro from yesterday, we had a huge trough diving in, a huge storm system diving through across the eastern U.S. And now over the last couple European model runs, we have this huge ridge of high pressure over the eastern U.S. now, with storm systems now starting to dig out west. You see the lower pressure out here. Now what this is going to do is it's going to begin to get the flow going across the middle of the country. This is going to yank up that warm and moist air from the south over the middle of the country again, and that is going to potentially get the atmosphere prime again. It'll take a few days, but prime again for severe weather across the middle of the country. So this is interesting development, but it's kind of backed by the Euro ensemble also. But now we know we got this big ridge, around this time next week across this region. So I'm kind of pulling for that, because me and my family want to take a day to the beach this coming Friday, next Friday or next Saturday. But if this happens, this will be warm across all the eastern U.S. But you keep going, and we start to get, now this is getting kind of far out, between day 7 and day 10, or April 20th, we get this system right here, this lower pressure that swings and gets thrown across the middle of the country. And then we got another one that dives in. Now when you start to get the blue on this side of your screen, on the western side of the U.S., that means that the flow is going to support warm, moist air getting pushed further north across the middle of the country. So I will kind of show you what that looks like as far as Monday. Here comes that system that swings through. There's our showers and storms right here for Monday in response to that lower pressure swinging through. And then, like I said, late Monday night into Tuesday morning, we could have some energy that swings on through with the associated actual lower pressure, etc. So, but taking a look at the Euro ensemble as far as our pattern going forward, and I kind of got ahead of myself when showing you the actual Euro run. Here's that signal for that ridge. After we get rid of this trough that digs down the eastern U.S. next week, this will bring another shot of cool air in the middle of next week. And then quickly a ridge moves in. So this is next Friday morning, the 18th. See this area of orange? This will bring above average temperatures across the eastern U.S. returning very quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how your 10-day forecast temperatures begins to change because of this on your apps and stuff, because of this ridge of high pressure showing up. And there's that signal for some sort of storm system in the southwest. This could get the return flow going across the middle of the country. And it's probably going to bring a lot of weather if this ends up happening across the middle of the country. And it's probably going to be the risk of strong to severe storms. So there's energy here, swinging across the middle of the country. You just can't see it, but there is lower pressure swinging through. And then a kind of a stronger trough digs down. And this could really get the return of severe weather going the last 7 days or so of April. Okay, anytime you got a ridge in the east like this and troughing in the west, the bluer being the troughing, the ridge being the orange, you have a flow that is doing just like that. That is kind of yanking up that warm, moist air from the south, the Gulf, just the south in general, lower latitudes. And then you're obviously going to have the flow from the storm system. You got kinematics and thermodynamics meeting right in the middle of the country. Right now, the pattern is like this. Okay? Well, the pattern is like this. It doesn't support flow across the middle of the country. In fact, your flow is going like this right now. It's kind of going like this, and then it does some kind of weird thing like this because of this low. So that does not support the yanking of that warm, moist air across the middle of the country. That's why we're not having really any big severe weather episodes right now, because most of the country is pretty stable. Now, to kind of see what that looks like when you're speaking of surface moisture, okay, right now, getting into right now, most of the country is pretty stable, okay? Now, we're getting into next Tuesday, the 15th. Look at these dew points. They're in the 40s, 30s. I mean, it's almost all the way to the Gulf coastline, because that cold front comes in midway next week and cools everybody down temporarily. Now, I want you to watch how the atmosphere responds to a ridge building over the middle and the eastern sections of the country late next work week. You can see how the moist air begins to return. So as we're getting into next Friday, all of a sudden the Euro ensemble is now showing deep Gulf air extending all the way up into Arkansas, heck, almost all the way up into areas of the Midwest. And then it's full steam ahead. After that, I mean, it looks like your moist sector across the deep south, dew points in the 60s, which these storms like, begins to get deeper and it begins to get larger, and it gets kind of suppressed at times, but in general it begins to slowly build and build and build, and then by the time you get past day 10, you're starting to get the return of that Gulf moisture extending pretty far north. This opens up a pretty wide sector of moist air to be overlapped by any kind of flow that moves in because of storm systems. And speaking of flow, here it goes. Right now, the flow is diving down the northwest right now. And it's going to do the same thing next week. And that's when this is. This is from midway, or early to midway next work week. We got flow swinging down here out of the northwest. This is not going to support severe weather. It's going to push, actually, it's going to push any kind of warm, moist air back down to the south. So it's going to stabilize most of the country. But you see this little feature right here? You see kind of the purple? This is 50, 60 knots of upper level flow. This is going to get going, and this is going to begin to bring the flow back out of the southwest. So it's going like this now and then shooting across the middle of the country. This is going to help, get that warm, moist air returning to the north. And then obviously we're going to have little short waves swinging through this low, and this is actually going to aid in the wind flow. So you have the overlapping of the wind flow and then the surface moisture, thermodynamics, kinematics, and then you're going to get the return of severe weather. And this continues. In fact, it starts to look more and more hyper as we move forward here, as the flow starts to go pretty haywire after, day 7 or something. Then it might relax, and then you get your I'm stuttering here, your traditional look flow across the middle of the country. But of course, it gets a lot more smoothed out as we get further out because there's a lot of question marks. But you get to about the beginning of the last week of April, and you start to get your traditional look here of flow coming to the south here, and then coming out of the southwest to the northeast across the middle of the country. So I know that don't look like much, but if you're looking at a Euro ensemble or any kind of ensemble, guys, this far out, this will support this kind of flow when it's oriented from the southwest to the northeast. That's going to support severe weather across the country. If it's doing like this, it's probably not. Yeah, I mean, you could get some severe weather. In fact, we had an example of it over the last couple days across areas in the mid-south, southeast. The flow is coming more so out in the northwest, and we could certainly still get severe weather. But when it comes to your larger, more significant severe weather events, then it's definitely going to be this one right here. So, last thing we'll look at here is what it looks like as far as the surface, and then we'll wrap this video up, kind of dragging this one on a little bit longer than we need to. But, we're getting into next Thursday. We already have a low pressure kind of ejecting across the middle of the country. Could this bring some severe weather? It could, but it's really after we get into next weekend. For example, here's a strong storm system. Maybe as we're getting into a week from today, we got a lot of splotches of green and orange and yellow. This could be some sort of severe weather. Don't look at the specifics and the details of this range. And then we have a larger storm system next Sunday. Not a forecast that shows up with, it looks like some sort of shower and storm activity across the southern plains, and it's going to fit the pattern. This looks like a stronger low that pivots across the country. It's going to bring a multi-day threat of severe weather as we're getting somewhere between day 7 and day 10. And the general thing you look at here is we're starting to get multiple low pressures ejecting across the middle of the country. That's a clear sign that the pattern is beginning to change. So enjoy the calm for now. No point in going any further out in this because I do think our break will end. In fact, I think by the time we're into late next work week, we're already starting to get 15% risk of severe weather in the extended forecast. And I think maybe not next week, but the week after, I think we're going to have an active stretch of severe weather coming up. So we'll continue to fine tune this, talk about it to death until we have something that we're actually tracking. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.